The Miami Bayside waves crashed 21 stories below. As I stared at Robert's text message for the 100th time, three little dots appeared, disappeared, then reappeared again. Nia, the corporate diversity officer who could navigate any boardroom crisis, stood paralyzed on her own balcony at 2 a.m. It's been going on since before we got married. The words finally appeared on my screen. I need to tell you everything. My fingers hovered over the glass. Delete the message. Pretend I never saw it. Go back to bed where my husband of 23 years was probably still awake, waiting for my response. 23 years built on quicksand. The ocean breeze whipped my silk robe around my legs as another text appeared. I've been addicted to gambling our entire marriage. Funny how you can live in paradise and still be in hell. Our beachfront condo, our dream home, our isolated paradise. All of it suddenly felt like the most elaborate lie. I'd spent decades navigating the sharks of this world. Nia, the successful executive with the beautiful family, the woman who had it all figured out. The credit cards are maxed. The investment accounts are empty. Another text. Then another. I took out a second mortgage last year. I gripped the railing, my knuckles turning white. Behind me, through the glass doors, our home gleamed with expensive minimalist furniture and abstract art. Somewhere inside, Ariana and Alyssa slept, unaware that their world was collapsing. Come inside so we can talk. I finally texted Robert back. Professional, controlled, just like handling a discrimination complaint at work. Identify the problem, create an action plan, implement solutions. But this wasn't work. This was my life. Robert stood in our kitchen, still in his work clothes from yesterday, eyes bloodshot. I was going to tell you so many times, he whispered. After Ariana was born, after we moved here, after your promotion. I heard myself laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that didn't belong to me. So you decided tonight was perfect? What changed? They're threatening to go to your company, to expose me. Robert slid a stack of papers across our imported marble countertop. We have 30 days before they take legal action. The numbers blurred before my eyes. Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, all hidden behind separate accounts. Cash advances, loans in my name I never signed for. But there was something else in the stack. Credit card statements for cards I'd never seen before. What are these? I demanded, holding up American Express bills with charges to hotels in Chicago, Atlanta, New York. Robert's face paled. Nia, I can explain. Business trips that I funded your gambling with. My voice rose. Or something else. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. Then Robert did something I'd never seen in 23 years of marriage. He started to cry. There were others, Nia. Not many. Just when the pressure got too much. When I was traveling for work and the casinos were right there and I'd lose everything and I'd feel so empty. His words tumbled over each other. It didn't mean anything. Just part of the addiction. The room tilted sideways. The affairs weren't just about gambling. They were about filling some void I'd never been able to reach. All those years I'd thought our marriage was solid. I'd been competing with slot machines and strangers. Ariana's college fund? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Robert's silence was answer enough. Alyssa's medical savings. I pressed, thinking of our youngest daughter's asthma treatments. More silence. My phone buzzed with another message, but this one wasn't from Robert. Kevin Martinez, my college boyfriend turned successful Chicago consultant, had sent me a LinkedIn message earlier that had somehow migrated to text. Can't stop thinking about our conversation. You deserve so much better than what you're settling for. I'd been talking to Kevin for 3 months now, ever since he'd reached out about a potential consulting opportunity. What started as professional networking had slowly shifted into something more dangerous. Late-night calls about business strategy that turned into confessions about my crumbling marriage. His sympathy felt like oxygen when I was drowning. My phone buzzed. Kevin again. I meant what I said earlier. You don't have to face this alone. I'm flying to Miami tomorrow for the Henderson account. Let me take you to dinner. Let me remind you what it feels like to be appreciated. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. Here was my escape route. A successful man who saw my worth, who wouldn't gamble away our children's futures, who wouldn't betray me with strangers in cities I'd never visited. I did what I always do in crisis. I compartmentalized. We can fix this, I said automatically. The same words I'd used when we hit rough patches before. This is just another challenge. We've overcome worse. But we hadn't, and deep down I knew it. I already spoke to a lawyer, Robert said, not meeting my eyes. He thinks bankruptcy is our only option. 3 days later, I packed a suitcase while Robert took the girls to school. Just essentials for a business trip, I told myself. Just space to think, just temporary. But Kevin's invitation was folded in my purse like a lifeline. I yanked open my bedside drawer and froze. Beneath a stack of sleep masks and charging cables sat a leather-bound journal I hadn't seen in years. My prayer journal, from back when I still believed God listened. Back before I replaced faith with achievement and church with networking events. I flipped it open to a random page. Lord, something feels wrong in my marriage. Give me wisdom to see what I'm missing. The date 15 years ago. I slammed it shut and shoved it in my suitcase anyway. Some kind of cosmic joke, finding that now, 6 months earlier, my life was a masterpiece of my own making. I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Miami Bayside condo, watching the sunrise paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. This view had been on my vision board for 15 years, and now Nia Greene owned it. Not just the view, the entire 21st floor corner unit that Architectural Digest had featured last spring. I sipped my perfectly brewed coffee and scrolled through my calendar. Board meeting at 9, lunch with the mayor at noon, and dinner with Robert and potential investors at 7. As the first Black female corporate diversity officer at Meridian Global, I'd shattered every ceiling they'd built over me. My team had just secured a billion-dollar contract to restructure diversity initiatives across 3 Fortune 500 companies. The money was flowing, respect was growing, and I was the woman everyone wanted to be. Mom, have you seen my blue science folder? Ariana appeared in the kitchen, already dressed in her private school uniform, hair perfectly braided the way I'd taught her. At 15, she was becoming my mini-me, ambitious, articulate, and aware of how the world worked. Check the home office, second drawer. I didn't even look up from my phone. I knew where everything was in our home. It was my job to know, to anticipate, to solve before problems fully formed. Robert rushed through, grabbing his travel mug. Conference call with Tokyo in 20. Don't wait up tonight. He kissed my cheek, the familiar scent of his cologne lingering briefly. 23 years of marriage, and we still moved in perfect synchronization, like dancers who had memorized the routine. What I didn't know was that he'd be in Atlantic City by midnight, not on a conference call. Alyssa's science project is due tomorrow, I reminded him. I've got the materials ready on the dining table for when you get back. He nodded, already halfway out the door. You think of everything, Nia. Yes, I did. That was my superpower, thinking of everything, managing everything, fixing everything. When your childhood looks like mine did, you learn early that relying on others leads to disappointment. Better to handle it yourself. That evening, I sat at Alyssa's bedside, helping my 9-year-old review spelling words. Her small fingers twisted her curls the way she always did when concentrating. Mom, why don't we pray anymore? The question came suddenly, her innocent eyes looking up at me. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, the same feeling I got when someone brought up Jesus in the boardroom. We're just busy, sweetheart. Now spell necessary. But Grandma said Jesus is always listening, even when we're busy. Alyssa persisted, her voice small but determined. Your grandma has different priorities, I said, my tone closing the conversation. Necessary. Good job. I kissed her forehead and turned out the light, pushing away the memory of my own mother's prayers. Those prayers hadn't stopped my father from leaving or kept the lights on when money was tight. My success came from my own hands, my own mind, my own relentless drive, not divine intervention. 2 weeks later was the first time I'd heard from Kevin in years. I was organizing our annual charity gala when my assistant transferred a call. Nia Greene speaking, I answered, my voice sliding into its professional register. Nia, it's Kevin Martinez. We worked together on the Johnson campaign in college. I remembered. We dated seriously for 2 years until I chose Harvard Business School over following him to Chicago. Kevin, it's been 20 years? 22? I've been following your career from afar. Congratulations on the Meridian promotion. You always said you'd change the corporate world. The conversation flowed easily, like no time had passed. Kevin had built a successful diversity consulting firm, was recently divorced, and had seen my keynote speech online. I'm actually expanding into the Southeast, he said. I was hoping we could discuss some potential partnerships. Maybe over dinner when I'm in Miami next month? I should have said no. Should have suggested a business lunch with my team present. But Kevin's attention felt like validation after months of Robert's distracted absences and unexplained mood swings. I'd love to catch up, I heard myself saying. The dinner was supposed to be professional networking. Kevin made it feel like so much more. He listened when I talked about workplace challenges, asked thoughtful questions about my initiatives, remembered details from our college days. Over wine at Joe's Stone Crab, I felt seen in a way I hadn't in years. You were always destined for greatness, Kevin said, his eyes holding mine across the table. I hope Robert appreciates what he has. Something flickered in my chest, dangerous and intoxicating. Marriage is complicated, I replied, taking another sip of wine. It doesn't have to be. Kevin reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. Some people bring out the best in each other, others just exist in the same space. I pulled my hand back, but the warmth lingered. I should get home, of course. Kevin smiled, but his message was clear. It was wonderful seeing you again, Nia. I hope it won't be the last time. That night, I lay awake next to Robert, replaying every moment of the evening. When was the last time my husband had looked at me the way Kevin had? When was the last time Robert and I had talked about anything deeper than logistics and schedules? The late-night text messages started innocently enough. Kevin checking in about potential business opportunities. But gradually they became more personal, more frequent, more dangerous. I can't stop thinking about our conversation, Kevin wrote one evening while Robert was at another client dinner. You're remarkable, Nia. I hope you know that. Thank you, I typed back, knowing I should stop there. Instead, I added, sometimes I forget. Then let me remind you. You're brilliant, successful, beautiful. Any man would be lucky to have you. The attention was intoxicating. Here was someone who saw my achievements, my potential, my worth, not just the logistical manager I'd become in my own home. When Robert came home late smelling like cigarette smoke, with vague explanations, Kevin's messages felt like lifelines. The emotional affair accelerated over 3 months. Late-night phone calls about business strategy that turned into intimate conversations about our dreams, our disappointments, our growing attraction to each other. Kevin made me feel desired, appreciated, intellectually stimulated, everything I was missing at home. I'm flying to Miami again next week, Kevin texted one evening. Let me take you away from all this stress for one night. You deserve to be cherished. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply. This was the line I'd been dancing around for months. Cross it, and there would be no going back. That's when Robert's confession shattered everything. I approached my marriage crisis like every other problem in my professional life. I created a project plan, complete with milestones and metrics, as if Robert's confession was just another initiative needing my expert management. But I was fighting battles on multiple fronts. At work, rumors about my personal situation were starting to circulate. Diane Crawford, my ambitious deputy who'd been gunning for my position, had somehow learned about Robert's addiction and was strategically positioning herself as my potential replacement. Nia, darling, you look exhausted, Diane said with false concern during our weekly leadership meeting. Are you sure you're able to give the Henderson project your full attention? I'd be happy to take on additional responsibilities while you work through things. The Henderson project, the billion-dollar diversity initiative that would make or break my career. The same project Kevin was consulting on, which had brought us back together. I'm managing just fine, I replied coolly, though we both knew I was drowning. First step, information gathering. I spent 3 sleepless nights researching addiction recovery statistics, downloading relationship workbooks, and crafting what I called our marriage restoration roadmap. My Miami beachfront condo became command central, with sticky notes covering my home office walls. I even blocked time on my calendar for strategic relationship enhancement sessions. We can fix this, I told Robert, sliding the color-coded schedule across our kitchen island. I've identified our key performance indicators and developed accountability measures. The look on his face, Somewhere between pity and exhaustion should have been my first clue this wasn't going to work. But I pushed forward, convinced my corporate skills would save us. Meanwhile, Kevin's messages became more insistent. I heard about Robert through the Miami Business Network, he texted. I'm so sorry you're going through this. You shouldn't have to face it alone. 2 weeks later, my beautiful plan collapsed. Robert missed our third scheduled discussion, choosing instead to lock himself in the guest room. The carefully constructed checklist remained untouched on the refrigerator. When I confronted him, his response cut deep. Nia, this isn't one of your diversity trainings. You can't PowerPoint our marriage back together. That same day, Diane made her move. She scheduled a private meeting with our CEO, allegedly to discuss continuity planning for the Henderson project. By afternoon, I'd been removed as lead consultant, with Diane taking over my role. It's temporary, our CEO assured me. Just until you get your personal life sorted out. We need someone who can give this project undivided attention. Time for professional reinforcement. I hired Celeste, a life coach with 5-star reviews and a waiting list of celebrity clients. Her 5-step relationship revolution program promised transformation in 30 days. The price tag made me wince, but I'd have paid double if it meant saving my family. You're operating from your masculine energy, Celeste informed me during our second session. Your husband needs space to reclaim his power. I nodded along, taking diligent notes while ignoring the voice inside screaming this was nonsense. Kevin called that night, his voice warm with sympathy. I heard about the project reassignment. Diane Crawford is playing dirty politics. You heard about that. I was surprised he knew the internal dynamics at my company. Miami's business community is small. People talk. His voice softened. Nia, you're under incredible pressure. You don't have to carry this alone. I'm fine, I lied. But my voice cracked. No, you're not, and that's okay. Let me help you. Let me be there for you the way you deserve. When Celeste suggested I surrender control by letting Robert manage our finances, the same man who had hidden his addiction and drained our savings, I terminated her services. Desperation crept in around week 4. The girls were starting to notice something was wrong. Ariana, my teenager with razor-sharp intuition, cornered me one morning. Mom, what's happening with you and Dad? She demanded, her arms crossed in a gesture that reminded me painfully of myself. And why is Diane Crawford calling the house asking about your work schedule? The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Diane wasn't content with taking my project. She was gathering ammunition for a complete takeover of my position. I mumbled something about work stress, but my daughter deserved better than corporate deflection. That night, as Robert slept in the guest room and the ocean waves crashed outside, Kevin's latest message felt like a lifeline. I'm in Miami tomorrow night. Let me take you to dinner. Let me remind you what it feels like to be valued. This time, I didn't hesitate. Yes, I need to get out of here. The dinner at Ocean Prime was everything my marriage hadn't been in years. Kevin was attentive, appreciative, intellectually stimulating. He listened when I vented about Diane's workplace sabotage, offered strategic advice about protecting my career, made me feel competent and desirable. You're extraordinary, Nia, he said, his hand covering mine across the white tablecloth. Robert's addiction isn't your fault. His affairs aren't your fault. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. The wine had loosened my tongue. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd followed you to Chicago 20 years ago. It's not too late, Kevin said quietly. I have an opening for a senior diversity officer at my firm. You could start fresh. Leave all this behind. The offer hung between us, tempting and dangerous. A new city, a new life, a man who appreciated my worth. I could take Ariana and Alyssa, give them stability away from Robert's chaos. I need time to think, I whispered. Of course, Kevin signaled for the check. But don't think too long. Some opportunities don't wait forever. In the parking garage, Kevin walked me to my car. Under the fluorescent lights, he looked younger, more like the college boyfriend I'd once loved. Nia, he said softly, stepping closer. I never stopped caring about you. These past months, talking to you, seeing who you've become, you're everything I remembered and more. Before I could respond, he kissed me, soft, gentle, full of 20-year-old promises and current desperation. For a moment, I let myself imagine a different life. One where I was valued, where my success mattered, where I wasn't carrying everyone else's problems. Then I pulled away. I can't. Not yet. I understand, Kevin said, though. Disappointment flickered in his eyes. But I won't wait forever, Nia. You deserve better than what you're settling for. I drove home through Miami's glittering streets, Kevin's words echoing in my head. Did I deserve better? Had I been settling for a marriage built on lies and addiction? Was staying the right choice? Or just the safe one? My third attempt at fixing things came from Alyssa, my youngest. Why don't we all go to family therapy? She suggested during breakfast. Her voice small but determined. Mrs. Peterson's parents did that when they were fighting, and now they're okay. From the mouths of babes. I scheduled the appointment immediately, relief washing over me. This was the answer. Neutral territory with a professional mediator. Robert agreed. Ariana reluctantly consented, and even Alyssa seemed hopeful. The morning of our first session arrived, and I sat alone in the therapist's waiting room for 45 humiliating minutes. My family had collectively decided not to show. That betrayal broke something in me. I called in sick to work, a first in my 15-year career. My identity as the woman who could handle anything was disintegrating. The beachfront paradise I'd worked so hard to afford now felt like a glass cage, displaying my failures for all to see. In desperation, I turned to religion. Not real faith, just desperate bargaining. I hadn't been to church since Alyssa's christening, but suddenly I was making deals with God. If you fix my marriage, I'll volunteer every weekend. If you make Robert stop, I'll donate half my salary. If you just give me back my old life, I'll be good forever. I drove to a church near my office, slipping into the back pew during lunch hour. I performed all the motions I remembered from childhood, kneeling, crossing myself, mouthing words to hymns. I dropped money in every collection box. Nia Greene in every collection box. I even bought a devotional book from the gift shop and highlighted passages that mentioned marriage. None of it worked. My prayers felt hollow, bouncing off the ceiling and returning unanswered. The devotional sat unopened on my nightstand. The church visits became less frequent, then stopped altogether. God, it seemed, wasn't interested in my corporate approach to spirituality. The final blow came 6 weeks after Robert's confession. I arrived at work to find security waiting at my desk, with a box of my personal belongings. Nia, I'm sorry, our CEO said, not meeting my eyes. The Henderson project complications, your absences, the rumors about your personal life. The board feels it's best if you take an extended leave of absence. Diane stood behind him, barely containing her smile. I'll make sure your projects are handled with the utmost care, she said with false sympathy. 20 years of building my career, gone. The reputation I'd carefully cultivated, destroyed. The financial security I'd counted on, evaporating just when I needed it most. That night, I stood on my oceanfront balcony, watching the waves crash against the shore. The life I'd constructed was washing away with each tide. My professional skills had failed me. My marriage was beyond my control. My children were slipping away. Even my desperate attempts at religion had amounted to nothing. Kevin called as I was contemplating how far the drop was to the beach below. I heard about Meridian, he said gently. I'm so sorry. Diane Crawford is a snake. It doesn't matter anymore, I said, my voice flat. Nothing matters. Don't say that. You matter. To me, to your daughters, to everyone whose life you've changed through your work. His voice grew urgent. Nia, come to Chicago, tonight. Don't make any permanent decisions while you're in this headspace. For a moment, I was tempted. Kevin represented escape, validation, a chance to start over. But running away wouldn't solve anything. It would just create new problems. I can't, I whispered. I have to face this. Then let me face it with you. I can be on a plane in 2 hours. No. The word came out stronger than I felt. Thank you for everything, Kevin, for reminding me of who I used to be. But I need to figure out who I'm going to become. After I hung up, I sat alone with my thoughts and the sound of waves. For the first time in months, I wasn't calculating my next move or trying to manage the crisis. I was just sitting with the ruins of my carefully constructed life. The prayer journal lay open beside me, pages fluttering in the ocean breeze. One entry caught my eye, written in my young, optimistic handwriting. Lord, make me into the woman you want me to be. not the woman I think I should be. I'd forgotten I ever wrote those words. Forgotten the girl who believed God had a plan better than her own perfectly orchestrated life. The Miami sunrise used to fill me with hope. Now, as it poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our beachfront condo, I could barely look at it. 3 weeks since Robert's confession, 2 weeks since losing my job, 1 week since ending things with Kevin, and I, Nia, had never felt so utterly alone. The waves crashed outside, indifferent to my pain, while I sat surrounded by designer furniture that suddenly felt like props in a life I'd been pretending to live. I'd called in sick to my consulting jobs, the part-time work I'd scrambled to find after Meridian. Third time this month. Me, Nia, who'd never missed a day at the firm in 15 years. The irony wasn't lost on me that as a former corporate diversity officer, I'd spent my career helping others navigate workplace crises while my own life imploded. "Mom, are you taking us to school?" Ariana stood in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes heavy with concern beyond her teenage years. Beside her, little Alyssa clutched her unicorn lunchbox, confusion written across her face. "Your father's taking you today." My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. I couldn't even look at them properly. Their innocence felt like an accusation. After they left, the silence of our luxury prison closed in. I wandered from room to room, touching objects that had once meant something. The family photo from Bali, the award from last year's leadership conference, the Bible gathering dust on the nightstand, all artifacts from a life built on quicksand. I'd done everything right. Everything. Perfect career trajectory, beautiful family, active in church, community respected. I was the woman other Black professional women looked up to. "Nia's got it all figured out," they'd say. If they could see me now barefoot in yesterday's clothes, staring at foreclosure notices I couldn't bring myself to open. When Robert confessed his addiction, something broke inside me that I couldn't name. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was realizing our entire marriage had been shaped around his secret life. Every business trip, every late night, every unexplained withdrawal from our account. The foundation of everything I thought we'd built together was rotted through. Rain began to fall outside, matching my mood. I pulled out my journal, the one where I'd been faithfully recording prayers for 20 years. The pages felt foreign in my hands. I tried to pray, mouthing the words I knew by heart. "Lord Jesus, I come before you." Nothing. The words hung dead in the air. I tried again. "Father God, I need you now more than ever." My voice cracked. Who was I kidding? These were just words I'd memorized for Sunday service performances. Had I ever really known Jesus at all? Or was faith just another achievement I'd checked off my life's to-do list? The rain turned violent, lashing against the windows. I grabbed my keys and drove. No destination, just away. Away from the condo that no longer felt like home. Away from the phone that kept buzzing with calls from creditors I couldn't pay. Away from the person I'd become. I found myself parked at Biscayne Bay Bridge. The water below looked peaceful, inviting. I stepped out of the car, walked to the railing. The rain soaked through my silk blouse, the one I'd paid too much for to impress people whose names I couldn't remember now. "Mommy, look at me." Alyssa's voice echoed in my head, from last summer when she'd learned to swim. Her joy, her trust in me to keep her safe. I gripped the railing tighter, suddenly terrified by how close I'd come to the edge. What was I doing? What had I become? I slid down against the bridge support, rain mixing with tears, no longer caring who might see Nia. Always put together, always in control Nia, completely broken. My designer purse lay in a puddle beside me. Inside it, my phone, my planner, my perfectly organized life. This is too hard. It's built on lies. Why? Why is this happening? I screamed. The truth crashed through my defenses. I hadn't just lost Robert to his addiction. I'd lost myself to mine, the addiction to success. I'd made an idol of my 5-year plan, my corner office, my reputation. I'd traded authentic relationship with Jesus for religious performance. And I'd nearly destroyed what was left of my family chasing validation from a man who represented everything I thought I wanted, but nothing I actually needed. I hate him. Why did he lie and cheat? I whispered, no longer even pretending to pray formally. I failed at everything that matters. My marriage, my faith, even being there for Ariana and Alyssa. The rain continued falling, indifferent to my confession. I stayed there until my clothes were soaked through, until my perfectly styled hair lay flat against my skull, until my carefully constructed image had washed away completely. Nia, corporate diversity officer, wife and mother, had drowned in the rain. Whoever remained would have to find a new way forward, if there was one. The next morning, sun wasn't even up yet. I sat there staring at the Bible I'd highlighted and annotated like a quarterly report, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I slid from my chair to my knees, something I rarely did because it felt too showy, too performative, but this wasn't for show. My forehead pressed against the cool tile floor as tears came. Not the dignified single tear I'd allow myself in difficult board meetings, but ugly, body-shaking sobs that felt like they were tearing something loose inside me. I can't fix this. I can't fix him. I can't fix me. The words tumbled out between gasps. Please help me, Jesus. Please, please. If you don't help. I couldn't process Jesus turning his back on me too. The confession that came next surprised even me. I almost left them all. Robert, Ariana, Alyssa. I almost ran away with Kevin because he made me feel successful and wanted and in control. I almost chose my pride over my family. That's when this profound sense of presence, like someone had entered the room and sat down beside me. I stayed there on the floor until sunrise painted the room gold. For the first time in my life, I wasn't planning my next move or calculating outcomes. I was just being held by a God who saw past my carefully constructed image to the frightened, exhausted woman underneath. When Ariana found me there, still on my knees, she didn't say anything. My teenage daughter, who'd been giving me attitude for months, simply sat beside me and put her head on my shoulder. We stayed that way for a long time. I'm sorry, baby, I finally whispered. I've been so focused on fixing everything that I haven't let anyone see how broken I feel. I know, Mom, she said, using my actual title instead of the dramatic eye-roll mother she'd adopted lately. We all know. Later that morning I called Kevin, not to run away with him, but to finally close the door I should never have opened. I can't do this anymore, I told him. Whatever this was between us, it has to end. Nia, you're making a mistake, Kevin said, his voice tight with disappointment. You're choosing to stay in a broken situation when you could have something real with me. It was real, I admitted. That's the problem. But it was also wrong. I can't build something new on the ashes of something I helped destroy. So you're going to stay with a gambling addict who cheated on you, who ruined your credit and stole your children's future. I'm going to stay and fight for my family. Not because I can fix Robert, but because that's what love actually looks like. Staying when it's hard. Staying when there are no guarantees. Staying even when someone else offers you an easier path. Kevin was quiet for a long moment. I hope you don't regret this choice. I regret a lot of things, I said softly, but fighting for my marriage isn't going to be one of them. That conversation with Ariana was the first of many as our family began a different kind of journey. Not the carefully curated path to success I'd mapped out, but something messier and more honest. Robert and I started real counseling. Not the quick fix kind I'd insisted on before, but the deep, uncomfortable work that forces you to face yourself. After my breakdown in the prayer nook, I sat across from Robert in Pastor Regina's office for what would be our final counseling session together. The work had been brutal and beautiful for me. For Robert, it had been mostly performative. I can't do this anymore, Nia, he said, not meeting my eyes. The meetings, the accountability, the constant questions about where I've been. I feel like I'm suffocating. Pastor Regina leaned forward gently. Robert, recovery isn't about feeling comfortable. It's about— I know what it's about, he interrupted, his voice sharp with the irritation I'd grown to recognize as his tell when he was planning to disappear for days. And I can't live like this, constantly monitored, constantly having to prove myself. My heart sank, but it wasn't the devastating collapse I'd expected. Months of learning to surrender had changed something fundamental in me. What are you saying, Robert? I'm saying I want a divorce. I've already found a place. He finally looked at me, and I saw no remorse, no grief, just relief. You and the girls will be better off without me. The old Nia would have launched into negotiation mode, would have created action plans and ultimatums. The new Nia, the one who'd learned to let Jesus carry what she couldn't, simply nodded. I won't contest it, I said quietly. But I won't enable you anymore either. He left that afternoon while the girls were at school, took his clothes, his laptop, and apparently a significant portion of what remained in our checking account. He left behind a note for Ariana and Alyssa that I would read to them later, through tears. Not for him, but for their broken hearts. "Mommy, is Daddy coming back?" Alyssa asked that night, clutching her unicorn stuffed animal. "No, baby. Daddy chose not to stay and get better. But I thought Jesus could fix anything," she said, her 9-year-old faith wavering. I pulled her closer, my own faith feeling fragile but somehow still intact. "Jesus can heal any heart that wants to be healed, but he won't force anyone to choose healing." Ariana was angrier, more direct. "Good riddance," she said, though I could see the hurt behind her defiance. "We don't need him anyway. We're going to be okay," I told them both. Different than we planned, but okay. A month later, Kevin called. He'd heard about the divorce through Miami's interconnected business network. "I'm sorry, Nia," he said, though I could hear something else in his voice. "Hope, maybe. How are you holding up?" "Better than I expected," I said honestly. "Sad for the girls, but not devastated." "Does that make me a terrible person?" "It makes you honest and strong." He paused. "I'm still here, you know. When you're ready, the job offer in Chicago is still open." I looked out at the Miami skyline from our downsized unit. "I know you are, Kevin, and I'm grateful, but I'm not ready to be anyone's anything right now. I'm learning how to just be Nia, not the corporate version, not the perfect wife version, just me." "I can wait," he said softly. "Please don't," I replied, surprising myself with how firm my voice sounded. "You deserve someone who can give you their whole heart, not someone who's still putting the pieces back together." After I hung up, I sat in the quiet of our small apartment and felt something I hadn't experienced in years: peace. A month later, Diane Crawford called. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Nia, I have some news," she said, her voice carefully professional. "I'm leaving Meridian. I got an offer from Goldman Sachs. I couldn't refuse." I waited, knowing there was more. "The board wants to offer you your old position back. Full reinstatement, back pay, and a promotion to senior vice president." The old Nia would have jumped at the chance. The vindication, the financial security, the opportunity to prove herself all over again. "That's generous," I said carefully. "But I need time to think about it. Nia, you and I both know they messed over you. This is your chance to come back stronger than ever." After she hung up, I sat with the offer for days. Prayed about it, discussed it with Pastor Regina. The financial security would be wonderful for the girls. The professional vindication would feel good. But something about returning to the scene of my professional assassination felt wrong, like putting on clothes that no longer fit. That's when Charlotte called, literally. Dr. Maya Johnson, CEO of Johnson Consulting, a diversity and inclusion firm based in North Carolina, had been following my work for years. "I've been waiting for the right time to approach you," she said during our video call. "I know what happened at Meridian. Diane Crawford's tactics are well known in our industry. Maya's offer was different. Not just a job, but a partnership. A chance to build something new, something that aligned with who I was becoming, rather than who I used to be." "Charlotte's a great city for families," Maya continued. "Good schools, lower cost of living than Miami, but still metropolitan enough for your professional growth. And honestly, Nia, your story, your real story, not the corporate sanitized version, that's what our clients need to hear." I toured Charlotte on a weekend trip with the girls. We visited schools, explored neighborhoods, sat in a church service where the pastor talked about new beginnings and how God makes beauty from ashes. Ariana, now 16 and wiser than her years, surprised me with her enthusiasm. "I like it here, Mom," she said as we walked through Freedom Park. "It feels like a place where we could actually start over." Even Alyssa, my tender-hearted 10-year-old, seemed lighter. "Can we get a dog if we move here?" she asked. Practical as always. The decision crystallized during my quiet time one morning, not because of a dramatic sign or overwhelming feeling, but through the gentle conviction that had become familiar over the past year. This was the path Jesus was opening for us, not back to what was broken, but forward to what could be beautiful. I called Meridian first. "Thank you for the offer," I told the CEO, "but I'm choosing a different direction." Then I called Maya. "When can we start?" The move to Charlotte a month later felt like resurrection. We found a charming house in Dilworth, walking distance from good schools, and a church that felt like home from our first visit. I joined Johnson Consulting as senior partner, focusing on authentic leadership development and helping organizations create cultures of genuine inclusion rather than performative diversity. But the most beautiful part wasn't professional. It was watching my daughters thrive in an environment where they didn't have to manage their father's chaos or their mother's stress. Ariana joined the debate team and made friends who laughed easily. Alyssa got her dog, a golden retriever mix named Hope, and started writing stories about brave girls who went on adventures. And me, I learned to be still, to trust that Jesus had a plan even when I couldn't see the full picture, to parent from rest rather than anxiety, to build a career on service rather than ambition. For now, that was enough.